Let's discuss negating quantified statements in 3.1.3. Note, for a simple, unquantified statement, a negation can be formed simply by adding the word not. However, if the statement is quantified, that is, it contains the words some, all, or no, simply adding the word not may not be sufficient to negate the statement. Remember that a statement and its negation must have the opposite truth values. So to test if we have actually formed the negation of a statement, we can compare truth values. A statement and its negation must have opposite truth values. Example 3. Determine the truth values of the following statements and then decide, are they negations of each other? Now first just listen to these statements. Some plants are edible. Some plants are not edible. Sorry again for my typo. That should say not. Some plants are edible. Some plants are not edible. It sounds like we've formed the negation, but let's examine the truth values. Example A, some plants are edible. Well, that is a true statement. If you had salad for dinner, then you ate some plants, right? Example B, some plants are not edible. That's also true. These two statements have the same truth value. Therefore, they are equivalent statements. They are not negations. These statements are not negations. In fact, we examined this a little bit in the previous section. Let me remind you, we looked at the statement some A are B, some A are not B, and we illustrated that they could be expressed by the same Venn diagram. So to negate this statement containing the quantifier some, it is not sufficient just to insert the word not. That did not change the truth value of the statement. So the question then is, how do we negate quantified statements? Here's the rule. If a statement contains a quantifier, all, some, or no, form the negation according to the following pattern. So if I have the statement all A are B, then the negation is some A are not B. That is, if I want to negate the statement all cars are made by Toyota, then to negate that statement, I would just have to find one car not made by Toyota, or some cars not made by Toyota. Okay, so to form the negation of all A are B, I'm going to use the pattern some A are not B. As you work your homework, you will want to keep this table handy so that you can look at the overall pattern. Don't get lost in the details of the statements, but look at the pattern, look at the structure of the sentences. To negate all A are B, I'm going to use the combination some A are not B. Similarly, if I have some A are B, which is the statement we were considering, the pattern we were considering in example 3, how do I negate that? We learned you can't just insert a not to negate it. Here's how you negate it. No A are B. Some also means there exists at least one. If we want to write this in symbolic form, we can use the backwards E. There exists at least one. So if there exists at least one A that is B, to negate that, I would have to say there is not even one. No A are B. Now, if I have the statement no A are B, I can also negate it using the reverse, some A are B. So observe, to negate some, I use no. To negate no, I use some. Again, keep this table handy as you work through your homework. And remember, from the previous section, we were looking at forming equivalent statements for quantified statements. So make sure you understand there's a pattern for forming negations, there's a pattern for forming equivalent statements. And just by the way, I think dealing with the quantified statements is probably one of the hardest parts of this whole chapter. So if you can master this, you are good to go. Let's give this a try in example 4. For the given quantified statement, form an equivalent statement and the negation. Now, make sure you use the appropriate pattern. If you stick with the pattern, you're going to be able to get this right every time. Example A, we're letting the variable P represent the statement, all major roads are closed. So notice our quantifier here is all. The first group, major roads, we're going to call that A, are, they have this quality. They are closed. So the format of this statement is all A are B. Remember, I'm looking at structure, not getting lost in the details. Now, I want to form an equivalent statement. So I'm going to find all A are B, and I'm going to form a sentence with this pattern. There are no A that are not B. So we would write, there are no roads, major roads that are not B, not closed. That is an equivalent statement. We have all major roads are closed. There are no major roads that are not closed. If you can just kind of close your eyes and listen to those two statements and use your intuition, you can hear how they are equivalent. Now we're going to form the negation. Notice the negation is symbolized by not P. We can't just insert the word not. We have to use the appropriate form. So I'm going to start with the pattern, all A are B. The correct way to form the negation is some A are not B. So this would sound like some major roads are not closed. I am using the word not, but notice the quantifier all has been changed to some. So we are forming equivalent statements and negations by patterns, recognizing those quantifiers. Again, as you work through your homework, keep these two tables handy. Make sure you know one is for forming negations, one is for forming equivalent statements. Next example. Some cars are Hondas. We're going to represent that entire simple statement with the letter Q, or the variable Q. Some cars are Hondas. So we have some cars, sorry about my typo, some cars are Hondas. We could say this is some A are B. We want to form an equivalent statement. So I'm recognizing that the statement here has this pattern. Some A are B. I want an equivalent statement. Some A are B. So I'm going to negate it using this pattern. There exists at least one A that is B. Applying that to this particular problem, we can say there exists at least one car that is a Honda. A good thing about this particular chapter, it will make you a more critical reader and a critical listener, because you'll not only be listening for the details of statements, especially as written in articles or expressed by politicians or leaders, but you will be able to really think about how the sentences are assimilated. Are they equivalent? Are they negations? And you'll have a better understanding of language, a more concrete understanding of the expression of language. Now, let's form the negation. The negation is symbolized by not Q. So our pattern is some A are B, and we want to form the negation. So we're going with this pattern, some A are B. The negation is no A are B. So that's going to sound like no cars are Hondas. Now remember, you can double check this with truth values. If I look at the truth value of the original statement, some cars are Hondas, that's true. If I examine the truth value of the negation, no cars are Hondas, that's false. We could go out in the parking lot and find a Honda, right? And look at the equivalent. There exists at least one car that is a Honda. Yes, that's true. Okay, last example. The statement is No other parents are as uncool as you. See, the logic that you're learning will help you to talk to your teenagers out there. They might say something like this: no other parents are as uncool as you. So our quantifier here is no. No other parents, this group is group A, are uncool like you. So the structure of this statement, ignoring the details for a minute, no A, R, B. We want to form an equivalent statement. So the pattern is no A, R, B. Another way of saying that is all A are not B. That is, all other parents are not as uncool as you. That is, the other parents are way cooler than you, right? That's what they're trying to say. So, no other parents are as uncool as you is equivalent to saying all other parents are not as uncool as you. Now, let's form the negation. So, if the pattern is no A, R, B, and we want to form the negation, here's our pattern. The negation has this pattern: some A, R, B. Now, this is what you might say in response to your teenager. Some other parents are as uncool as me, right? So there you have examples of statements, equivalent statements, and negations. Remember, if the statement contains the quantifiers all, some, or no, then we cannot negate them simply by inserting the word not. We have to look at the overall structure of the statement and assimilate either an equivalent statement or a negation in the proper way. So please keep those two tables handy as you go through your homework problems. Look at the overall structure and read carefully and critically.